If you're a collector, you already understand stewardship, preserving what matters, planning ahead, and passing things on the right way. That's exactly how Peristyle Wealth approaches financial planning. As the Ferrari Club of America's official wealth management partner, they help avid collectors who value resilience and attention to detail. And the founder, John Suarez, is active in the community. I've judged one of his cars before, and I see him at events all over the country. To learn more, go to peristylewealth.com. Peristyle Wealth advisory services offered through New Edge Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor.
Every garage is a mirror of the mind that builds it. The garage becomes a quiet dialogue between who you are and what you craft. A garage is where work becomes meditation and solace, where mechanical truth becomes mental clarity. Some people go to offices, some go to mountains, others go to garages. At Metron Garage, we build for people who do all three. Give us a call to get started.
If you own a collector car, you already know it deserves more than a standard insurance policy. NCM Insurance specializes in agreed value coverage designed specifically for classic, collector, and enthusiast vehicles. From weekend drivers to serious collectors, they understand how these cars are used, stored, and protected. To learn more about protecting your collector car the right way, visit ncminsurance.com. Coverage built for the cars you care about. Every car in your garage tells a story, where it's been, how it's been maintained, and what makes it truly yours. Carport gives you a simple digital garage to document, organize, and manage your vehicles all in one place. Track service history, store important records, and keep your collection dialed in with confidence. From your daily driver to your dream car, Carport keeps everything in order so you're always ready for the road. And best of all, it's free to use and is 100% private. To learn more, go to carport.app. All right, welcome to the Collector Car Podcast. You know, this is all about collector cars, but whenever I have an episode that has to do with trucks or SUVs, you guys really seem to love it. So I specifically seeked Jason out. So I'd like to welcome Jason Noel. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here. And it's always fun to talk about cool classics, especially trucks.
Yeah, no, that's really, really amazing. It's funny because you popped up on my radar a couple weeks ago, and then I saw your video with Jay Leno, which after I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I definitely got to get Jason on. So let's talk about that in a little bit because I
Okay.
had my Pontiac GT on Leno's Garage, fun back behind the scenes stories. I'm sure you have a few I would love to hear about. So is it okay if we bring that up after
Yeah.
we learn a little bit about Fat Fender?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about Fat Fender. Is it strictly Fat Fender or Fat Fender Garage? Tell us about your business and how it began.
Yeah. So it's Fat Fender Garage, kind of a weird name now that I kind of historically look back at it. I was like, I could have come up with something cooler, maybe. I don't know. But I remember thinking, like, all right, I'm kind of fixing a couple vehicles and I sold it. And what I should probably come up with like a little LLC, so at least I can write off some expenses. And as I was kind of tinkering around with this idea, and so I pulled up and Googled a list of all the hot rod nomenclature words, and I liked the word fat fender for some reason. And because I noticed a lot of these old, Chevrolet advanced design pickup trucks, from like 47 to 53. And then I was doing some 56 Fords and they all had the fat fenders. Like, oh yeah, that fits right in. Surely I wouldn't be pitching myself in a hole any harder than that could have been at the time. But so we stuck with it. It's a little bit memorable of a name. It's easy for people to kind of remember the name of the company. And so it works. And so, yeah, it's kind of how that came about.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I started my podcast. Most people don't know this, but it was called Auto Sausage, and I was grinding together automotive goodness. And this one guy took it the totally wrong direction, and so I said, you know what? Let me just make it as clear as possible. The Collector Car Podcast. Like, what is this about? The collector cars, and it's a podcast.
Sure.
So I totally feel your pain there. It
Yeah.
feels like you're hanging your shingle on for decades, based on one decision in your life. So, whenever I think of fat fenders, I always think of like the 46 Ford convertible back in the day. And what
Mhm.
was kind of the first car that you started working on? I see a VW Bug in the back there on the wall. I think I see a 32 Ford, obviously a Bronco.
Yeah, so we actually had a 1950 Chevy pickup truck. And honestly, I don't really, this is going to sound really funny, but I am not a mechanic. I am not, a lot of people say, did you just grow up building trucks and stuff your entire life right out of the womb? And, I'm like, no, absolutely not. And so my background, that I have a lot of passion still is I am a carpenter by trade. So I've installed thousands of doors, ran hundreds of miles of crown molding. I've had multi-million dollar houses we've worked on from, 17 to $30 million homes to, 30,000 square foot homes from 18, down to 1,800 square foot homes. So I've done all that stuff. And so I under and I, we custom made wood doors, and so I have a pretty good like design eye and coming up with, how things look. And so because of that, I'm really good at like level and square, plumb, reveals, all that kind of stuff really comes real natural for me. I'm used to hanging, like I said, thousands of doors, and the reveal around the door becomes really important to me. So when I see a reveal around a car door, that also feels the very same kind of a progression for me. And so I kind of got into this just by accident with this 1950 Chevy, and my father-in-law owned it. We were just tinkering around with it. Um, he gets a little dissatisfied with keeping things. So he likes to kind of move on. He goes, "Hey, let's sell this thing. And we're in it this much. And whatever you can sell it for, you can keep above and beyond this number." I think that number was like $10,000. Like, hey,
Right.
we're in this thing 10 grand. So whatever you can sell it for, you can keep. I said, all right, well, so we sold it for $19,000 on eBay. And I was like, wow, I just made $9,000. I don't think he intended for that to happen. So I rechecked it back in. He goes, no, no, that's the deal we had. You keep it. And he goes, but that was fun. Let's do that again. I wonder if we can. And he likes like systems and processes and recipes, and he's a commodities trader. So for him, he really is interested in repeatable things and predictions, and figuring things out. So we got in this loop of buying and selling and predicting what the truck would bring if we did certain things to it. And so and we'd make 5,000, 6,000. We just got caught in this thing, and it became a little bit of a game for us. But we didn't always buy very well. And so then I was like, well, I don't know how to fix this. So I was like, I better get a mechanic. So we hired this mechanic named Dave, and so I'd ask him everything about how does an engine work? How does, I'd really inquire, and I was kind of his right-hand man, help me fix this and show me what to do. And so that's kind of how it all began. I started to discover real quickly for us that if I wanted to do something, that it was an absolute pain in the neck to find the products that I needed to accomplish that task.
Hmm.
And so it was like this mystery box out there. And there was 10 different ways to do it, and I couldn't figure out what was the best way and who had the best products.
Mm.
And that became very difficult for me to solve. And so it was just a real crapshoot. And over time we started to develop our own recipe, and then we started to kind of market that recipe, and we started to get people like, hey, you did a really good job on that truck. Would you build my truck? And
Right.
so that
Yeah.
slowly started to evolve, and we made a ton of mistakes. Like we've had some doozies that just, if anything could go wrong on a project, it surely happened on a few of those. And I look back, I'm like, well, that didn't go well. I'm surprised we're still in business after that one. But, you move forward.
But you learn, right? And is that when your parts business started? Because I noticed you have quite a few parts available, interior kits available. One of the biggest frustrations I have is there's a lot of aftermarket parts suppliers out there. I've got a 66 GTO, an old 65 Mustang, but the quality of the parts nowadays is so bad that even though it's quote unquote new and functions, right? How long is that thing
Yeah.
going to function? Is that part of the reason you started making parts? Or you just made them because they weren't available by other aftermarket suppliers?
So a little of both. So as we did like a 56 Ford and then we did another 56 Ford, I was like, you know that part we kind of rigged up in the last one? Well, look at us. We're rigging it up again.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wouldn't it be nice if we just had like 10 of these on the shelf for us so that we didn't have to like keep making that again? And so we were just making parts for us. We
Hmm.
weren't making them to sell at all. We were just making them for us. And then people would see it and they'd reach out and want to buy it. But so that kind of started. And then, I started to realize that, like you said, the parts we were getting weren't very good. It's new and but the quality is really poor. It's not as good as the original ones that were made. But this is all I have. The other, I might have like a door handle and it's all pitted and garbage and I need a new one, but it's not nearly as nice as the one I took off. The one I took off aesthetically doesn't look good, but the new one you could tell is lighter, cheaper. It's not real good. And so I was like, well, and here's my theory. And so a guy's building his vehicle and he gets it painted and he's putting it all back together and he spent a ton of money getting it done. But what if the mirrors, the door handle, some of these like little things that he's buying, he spent an extra $3,000 on, but it would just look better, function better, have a
Feel
little,
better.
right, feel better. Everything about it just, and all of a sudden people look at his vehicle and say, you know what? This is a nice vehicle. But it's nice because they recognize that there's a difference in quality of some of the parts that could start to set that apart and feel custom, even though he just bought it. And so my experience is that became true that we could actually take two vehicles, swap all the stuff made in China over to all the stuff made here with a good quality product. We spent an extra $5,000 and it elevated it about $20,000. And so that
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so that's what we discovered the perceived value goes way up just because people perceive that it must have been done better because all the products are nicer.
It's funny because I do see that obviously with other resto mod builders, obviously Jonathan Ward with Icon, he has his billet
Mhm.
aluminum stuff.
Yeah.
The Ring Brothers, they have their own line of
Mhm.
stuff. And it makes a ton of sense. And you see the need because you're building these trucks and sport utes and you're like, all right, this is not out there right now, or what is out there is really, really bad.
Hmm.
Let me create a solution for my customers and other folks, which is brilliant. And I've always said this, and none of the automobile manufacturers listen to me at all. But my theory is, and even to today, every single part of the car that you physically touch should be of the highest quality. Maybe not the highest quality, but a solid quality.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's an AC vent, knob or whatever.
Yeah.
Just make that, cut the corners, underneath the seat cushion or something. I don't know,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
my daily driver is a 2014 Toyota FJ, and I absolutely love it. But the first
Hmm.
time I grabbed that door handle, I was like, this thing is just hollow plastic. This is a hunk of junk. I
Hmm.
don't want this thing. And
Hmm.
6 years later, I tried it again and actually drove it and loved it. So it sounds like you're really kind of following that to make sure that when people see your builds, from the moment they touch that door handle, it's a quality
Hmm.
build all the way through, right?
Yeah, you do. And you know what? And as we became builders, we slowly started to realize that, all right, I got to order a chassis up. Okay, great. And it comes and it shows up. I'm like, boy, these are just chassis people.
Yeah.
They didn't think about the rest of the build, right? So I send it out to get interior, and you think that you communicated clearly what you wanted. Well, 2 months, 3 months go by. He finally gets to it. And when he finally gets to it, he's already 2 months behind. And so he's trying to hurry up and do it. And as he hurry up and gets it done, the quality is not nearly as good as I had hoped for. The design elements we talked about had been a little bit forgotten. And so you end up with something that you're just like, oh man, that stinks. And now you're having this disagreement with someone and that you hate and and then you're like, nah, and then he's got to redo it. Or he's really open, he wants to fix it, but I don't really have like 2 more months for him to fix this. And so I was just like, all right, like let's just do our own interiors. Let's just find an upholstery guy. I can help design it. We'll sit down together. We'll come up with some ways to just make this look nice. And then if he starts doing something I don't like, or that's not how I thought it was going to go, at least I'm right here. I'll see it. And we can kind of nip that in the bud real quickly. And so that became something that, you know, from interiors to chassis to painting ourselves to just monitoring the total control and that vertical integration in-house to where that desired outcome is really going to be exactly what I want it to be because there's no one else in control of that but us.
It's interesting because I look at your background, and if you're audio only, you're sitting in front of a wall full of pictures, and they're all at perfect spacing and 90-degree angles. And I find that folks like you who do this type of resto mod, I just interviewed Peter Nam with Gunther Works or the Singer
Mhm.
guys, or like I said before, the Ring Brothers. There's a anal retentiveness that seems to be an inherent trait that you just want to make it as perfect as possible, right?
Yeah, there's two conversations we have at work. And a lot of it does depend on the customer. But there's one that is perfect is close enough. That's one. And then for the other customer, close enough is perfect.
Right.
And so we have two different types of customers we deal with. And so, but we have to make sure that our guys understand clearly, and this is hard, that this is what this customer is paying for. Okay. He doesn't want $1 million car. He does not. He definitely wants something much, much less than that. So you have to understand like where you're going to cut. Maybe it's like you said, it's under the seat cushions and that bracket, got painted black instead of like wrapped in leather. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so you learn those areas where, it's not visible. We can make some changes, to help save money. No, we're not custom fabricating anything on this truck. We're going to build it really nicely though. And so you kind of learn, where you can adjust to help save budget and scope to still meet a customer's, demands and still, have them feel really excited about it, even though you've built other ones that are like, substantially nicer. But for me, it's not so much about saying we only build the very best vehicles on the planet, but it's mostly about saying we are, and this is where we're really like diving hard on right now is we built something that is very nice, but we met the customer's, desired outcome. In the end, I think that's what matters most. A little bit, I think that is a reputation I want to meet more than just saying we only build $2 million vehicles, right?
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
fine line there. And I feel like if we can meet both of those expectations of the customer and still maintain a trueness to our brand and the quality of products we're producing, I think that's a win-win all the way around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get into a little bit more with the Jay Leno video because that was definitely a different build,
Yeah.
for sure. But give us a little overview. It looks like you mostly do Chevy, Ford, American type stuff. Give
Hmm.
us a little overview of the build series. You've got the Revival series, the Designer series. I think the Revival starts around 150, Designers 4 to 600 or so. But yeah, just a little overview, power plants,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we have, as far as builds go, we have broken them down again into those two different quadrants. The Revival series is a guy that says, hey, I got my grandpa's truck. Um, Paint's decent. I just want like put on a new chassis and a new drivetrain and a new interior. Don't want to spend a ton of money. I'd love to keep this under 200 grand or under 250 or something like that. But I want a new chassis, new drivetrain, but I want it to drive it daily anywhere I want to go. Right? Maybe it needs glass, maybe it doesn't need glass, but that's kind of this like we're reviving it, right? We're kind of getting it back on the road and a really dependable driver. So they could be patina builds, they could be but it's very like there's no fabrication. It's very streamlined, straightforward, very restricted, on that type of stuff. Then we have the designer builds where That's all a la carte. You can get whatever you want. It's generally always going to be painted, and from there, whatever you can come up with in your mind, we'll build that for you. And so
Right.
that's basically a bottomless pit. It's a fabrication, a bottomless pit of ideas and technology and stuff. And so that, there's not as many of those guys are adventurous down that path. Some come in and they have an itch to scratch and, a certain idea they've been dreaming about for years. And so that's usually what's going to happen there. Then, from there, we have, of course, kits. We have interior kits, chassis kits, and all the retail parts that we sell online, which actually is a much larger part of our business than the build side of it. We do Chevys and Fords, we do trucks, we do Broncos, we do Blazers. We're looking at getting into some cars a little bit later towards the end of this year. We do all new drivetrains, whether it's a blueprint engine, whether it's a new crate motor from Chevy Performance side or Coyote Motors or the new Godzilla motor. Those are kind of the drivetrains. We'll put Whipple superchargers on them. We generally will push around 1,000 horsepower as kind of it for us. If people want to really get crazy into like 1,500, 2,000 horsepower, that's kind of again, a different build. We'll consider it, but I'm first and foremost, drivability is the most important thing for me. That people can get in it and go anywhere. And so sometimes those start to become a little bit of a headache, and so I don't really love all that stuff. It just becomes a lot more challenging to make it a driver when you get into those real high horsepower numbers.
I agree with you. Yeah, I want to drive whatever I have, so I don't want this crazy monster power that's just not wieldable. And I was going to ask you about your percent of business for your parts versus the builds. And I thought, well, if you're doing 500 $1 million builds, I wasn't sure that the parts would be that big of a business, but I'm looking at your interior kits. I could see that being a huge business just because it's all ready to go and it's an upgrade from the factory, right?
Yeah, it is. We coined the phrase hardware in a box early, and then I noticed some other companies have coined the same phrase. Obviously, not new words to the industry, but we really pride ourselves on good quality fit products, easy for anyone to install themselves. And so we refrain from too crazy over the top stuff. We still want all of our interior kits to have like a nod to the original
Mm-hmm.
with a nod to maybe, forward into today a little bit. But I don't want it to be something where um, you have an old classic pickup truck and you can't put it in it, even if it's a traditional. Um, so, I mean, we can really design some interiors that are just really impressive, but they won't fit every truck. And so we kind of really want to keep it, nice and clean and tidy and anyone that has an old pickup truck could purchase it and put it in.
Yeah, that's great. And just, I haven't said this yet, but your website's just fatfender.com. So you can go there and this will be in the description as well, where you can easily click on it. So yeah, let's talk about the Leno video there. So that was a really cool build. It was a huge Canadian only Mercury that was patinaed,
Yeah.
original patina. So just, for our listeners, just
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that because I think Jay was a little taken aback at first that that thing wasn't painted, but then I
Yeah.
think he really warmed up to it after that.
Yeah, Jay's an enthusiast at heart, as we know. Like he's got gasoline in his veins, and one might argue that he has steam in his veins with all the steam vehicles he has, But really cool guy, and so we had an opportunity to take something kind of different and unique, which is right up Jay's alley. And so we had this 1966 crew cab, which was the first, you know, time that Ford started to really build crew cabs in-house. They were oftentimes coach built, by other companies making them, but Ford had realized, a lot of people wanted them, and so So 1966, Mercury, which was a Canadian only brand of Ford. And so I guess the Canadians, just they like to have things a little different. And so they didn't want Fords up there. Canadians just wanted Mercury. And so they got the trucks. And so only the Mercury trucks were sold in Canada. And so a guy named Kyle, he had picked one up in Canada, had brought it down. He did a quick little swap on it, and medium wasn't really meant to be high end, but just kind of get it on the road and make a little bit of a splash with this orange crew cab. Our friend of ours, Roman, he had purchased it and he'd driven it for a few years and he wanted to do an upgrade. So Roman brought the truck to us, and then they'd called it Mercules, you know, because it was kind of a beast, but it was rough around the edges, and the customer really liked it because it was kind of an iconic, memorable orange, rough around the edge crew cab. And so everybody knew it for that. And so to repaint it and do all that stuff would really kind of change what it was. Um, and I think one day there's a play to be made to just pull that body off and give it, a new paint job and everything and really fix it up, maybe another 10 years down the road or something. But at this point, we just left it as is, put a new frame, cleaned up the motor, like we really went through it, new interior, and kind of gave it a really nice, stable, platform and drove amazing. And so we brought that into Jay's garage, and he's looking at this thing and he's just scratching his head, like, you know, why would, anyone do this, and this old patina thing. And but honestly, it really is, because like Jay said in the video, a lot of our customers are people that have more money than brains, and that often happens. And so, but this was something where it was real strategic, and so
Mhm.
it was meant to be a driver. It was meant to continue to show the rawness of what it was, and its kind of heritage of the life that it lived, and so, but it was also a great driver. Drives great, and so it was fun to put Jave in the driver's seat of this thing, and he really is pretty good. Like I often felt like the clutch was a little sensitive, and Jake just got right in it and drove it.
Yeah,
And
he did mention that a couple times, or the owner did. So yeah,
yeah, he just got in it and drove it, and he drove it like, and I was shocked. And honestly, they drove it through water, and the customer was like, ah, we just drove through water,
yeah,
and so there was some apprehension, but the customer's like, hey, if anybody's going to drive it through water, well, it'll be Jay. And
yeah.
so they came back, and at one time they almost went off the road because they were winding up through this thing, and the customer that owned it, he's like, I thought we were going to die. We almost went off the road, but everything worked out great. It was a fun experience for everybody, and it was really fun to just, see Jay in his element.
Yeah.
He's he is as nice and true to character as he is. Like he's what you see on TV and what you see on his YouTube channel like that. It's just him.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
loves it so much. It was
That's
fun.
the same, yeah, experience I had. And I thought that truck was really interesting. And he really seemed to like it once he got into it and drove it. I just thought it was gorgeous. And I had a high leaf patina at 65 K code Mustang fastback. And I love that thing because, I already had paint chips, and
Yeah.
so it was just freeing. I actually made a little sticker. I'll throw up a picture of it here, but I did a patina is freeing, meaning you can actually drive and enjoy the car. So I understand them wanting to keep that. I just thought, at least from what I could pick up in the video, that some of that rust was a little further along than I would have liked from a patina car.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's definitely some holes and a few things. Matter of fact, when we took it off, we went to get it off the original chassis. Someone had stick welded the bed to the frame.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We didn't, so there's a lot of like, stuff that was much harder to deal with,
Yeah.
and we finally got it apart. And then the rear cab mounts were kind of like crushing a little bit, so we had to like reinforce some of that stuff. And so it's it's definitely seen better days and definitely could, you know, but it's not getting abused now. It'll probably stay
Right.
just like it is for forever. It's not going to deteriorate anymore. Like we've all that stuff has been kind of stopped, and
Yeah.
so it's good.
That's cool. Yeah, there's like a seven, I don't know the year. I'm not a big truck guy. I mean, I like them, but I don't know that much about them. Probably early 70s Dodge Ram of some sort up the street for me, and it's orange and it's a snowplow and it has the 70s like snowcat decals still on it from the
Mhm.
70s. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh man, that's some cool patina. That thing's pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah, so do you have any behind the scenes stories with Jay? Obviously, he's a nice guy, but is there anything interesting that happened while you were filming that kind of like, did you have a chance to walk around the garage a little bit? Did you have lunch with Jay? How'd that whole thing go?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of fun. You got to do a lunch with Jay, and he does like two videos, as you probably remember, like a day, and very professional. It was fun to kind of walk around, and you could see anything, you could take pictures of anything, be very respectful, just don't post anything. It's
Hmm.
kind of how it was, and just so that crooks aren't getting the ins and out
Right.
of
Yeah.
how to
Wherever.
bring
Yeah.
in. Oh, I see. There's a opportunity there, and so, but super nice and very very much uh, has been like we always think of Jay the comedian, but which he is, and Jay, but he's really a Jay the car guy long before he was the comedian, and
Yeah.
is what I'd learned, and just it was really kind of fun to just see him in his element, and he's very quick at making jokes about everything, and so it was just kind of fun to kind of see where he came from and how he's got just hundreds of cars
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just the most bizarre stuff. But what I actually love the most is when you're in the garage, you had just like the big art on the wall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This big, but I was like, where this is like hand painted on canvas. Like this isn't like and they said, oh yeah, there's someone he knew in Hollywood back in the day that he commissioned just to take these old magazine advertisings and then recreate them in like 10 by 14 or 8 by 12s and then hung them up. And I was like, that's probably one of the coolest things here. It's
Yeah.
like,
He told me it was like the art director from The Tonight Show or something, something crazy like that. And there's two of them where he has a cameo driving one of the cars, and we only found one of them while we were there. So if I ever
okay,
get there again, I want to find that second one. So
yeah, 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 that's cool. Yeah. But there's more stuff in that garage than,
yeah.
I mean, this amount of stuff that's in there is. And he must own like stock with C-Tech because everything had a C-Tech charger on it.
Yes.
Everything is like, be careful, don't trip over the cords and knock something over. But they register those things every year.
Right.
They got guys that get them ready. If he wants to drive it, like he drives the stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Do you remember what the car was they were filming after yours?
yeah, there was what was it? It was before ours. So by the time we got there, they were already taken off and cruising. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, that's okay.
But the guy that was there that owned it, he was like on an early TV show in LA. He was really famous, but it was before my time of like a cop show in California, California centered cop show. I can't remember what it was called, but because everybody's getting their picture with him. I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
uh, like, I don't know. This is definitely in, like the 70s, which I was born in 72, but it was popular in the 70s, and so I don't remember what it was, but
Well, what else do we need to know about Fat Fender Garage? Are there some shows or some events where we can see you at, will you be at SEMA this year?
we are going to be at SEMA this year. Yes, we've got some really fun projects we're taking to SEMA. And we've got um, some unique things. We got to actually 56 Ford. We'll see if it goes to SEMA, if the client will let us take it there. you're going to want to stay tuned for this. It's coming together. It's a 1956 Ford, and hands down, the most expensive build we have ever done here.
Hmm.
And it's a 56 Ford, which is the quintessential hot rod pickup truck as far as I'm concerned. Of all the Chevys and Fords, like it's the quintessential hot rod pickup truck in that from that era. And it will be the nicest, coolest 56 Ford pickup truck that I have ever seen built and put together. But we also have spent the last 4 years building it. And so it's very tedious, and we're through the paint, and it's going to start coming together. So in the next couple months, yeah, stay tuned for that one. Start follow along, go to our YouTube channel, our Instagram, start seeing it. And our hope is to get it to SEMA or get it to, some real good event and debut it. But we got some cool crew cabs, a cool Bronco, and yeah, bunch of stuff. We'll probably have 3 or 4 at SEMA this year.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time on the Collector Car Podcast, and as always, I'll have all the links. I'll throw in the YouTube. I'll throw in everything in the description. So thanks again for being on the Collector Car Podcast, Jason.
Yeah, appreciate it, Greg.